Coventry, Simmons, Holzer, and here she is. Let's have a look at it. This is a world record by a long way. Terrific swim, fantastic swim, world record. Coventry, Simmons, Holzer, 1, 2, 3. Will it be a world record? Coventry on her way and wins. She wins in a world record time. World record to Kirsty Coventry.
My mom taught me how to swim when I was 18 months old, and then I joined my first swim club when I was 6 years old, and probably started doing little swim meets around that same sort of time, around 6 years old, but just loved the water and loved that I got to go and see friends. For me, it was just social. I remember my first kind of club coaches at Highlands Swimming Pool in Newlands area, and they probably at least said 4 or 5 times within a session, "Focus, stop playing," because we would dive down to the bottom and jump up, and we'd just have way too much energy.
And so when did you know that swimming was more than just something you did for fun, that this was something that you wanted to do competitively?
I probably realized how much I loved swimming when I was in junior school, because we would have school and then we would have school team swimming, and then I would go home and instead of doing homework, I'd jump in the pool at home and splash around with my sister and then go to practice. And my mom, they could never get me out of the pool on weekends. It was like, come on, you got to go to bed or you got to get in the bath and eat dinner. And it was like, no, 5 more minutes. And so that's when I realized that I just loved being in the water. And then as I got older, a lot of coaches and things would say to my parents, like, she's really good, she's talented, she picks things up really quickly. And they did a really good job of just being supportive. They never kind of pushed me. And up until recently, I don't really remember them telling me those kinds of things when I was young, maybe because it would have added a little bit more pressure and they just didn't want me to feel that. And then when I got into kind of the end of junior school and high school, I was able to kind of qualify for national teams and represent Zimbabwe. And at that point, swimming kind of became like a safe place for me, because I struggled a little bit in the classroom at school, and I was very skinny and always made fun of it and kind of bullied a little bit at school and never in like kind of the popular group. But swimming, I was able to go swim and do really well and start winning events. And so it was a place too that became safe, but then it also gave me confidence that I wasn't getting at school or with friends. So you're an Olympian.
What was your first Olympic experience?
I was 16 when I qualified. I had my 17th birthday in Sydney. I was swimming, I think, the 200 individual medley. I was swimming one of the events, and it was my birthday. I was so excited to be going and to be there, but it was very overwhelming being that young, and my parents obviously couldn't travel with me, and so I was there with the Zimbabwe team and my coach. But it was very cool because I got to see certain people that I'd heard about in the swimming world, and walking out for one of my first events, I just remember looking up and the one side of the stadium could seat like 13,000 people. And I just remember being like, oh my God, what's happening? And really, really nervous and kind of scared. And I still had some pretty good swims. I think my best place was in the 100-meter backstroke. And I finished 12th. So I knew okay, now I want to really, it's possible. It's kind of in my reach now that I've been there and I've experienced. And that's why in sport, it's so important to develop our athletes and allow them to go to the different steps of the different meets and the different levels of meets, starting from kind of the bottom and working themselves up. Because once I had experienced that, and I knew and had gone through the process and realized, okay, it's scary, but it's really awesome at the same time, then you kind of get reinvigorated and okay, I'm going to work really hard for the next 4 years and hopefully do better than what I did the first time around.
Had it been a goal? So you'd started swimming competitive. Was it something at the back of your mind? You thought, one day I want to be at the Olympics? Or
A reporter came to the house and I was like, woo. And I had like my little trophies. They were like this big, all sitting there by the pool. And I'm like in my Mashonaland t-shirt, so proud. They started asking me different questions about swimming. And they're like, well, do you want to go to the Olympics? I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go to the Olympics and win a gold medal. And they're all like, okay. My parents were kind of standing there going, okay, I guess that's what she wants to do. But I think I was kind of 9 years old. So at that point, you don't really realize how hard it's going to be or the sacrifices or what it's really going to take. You figure it out once you get a bit older. You're like, that's what he was talking about.
So what does it take to be an Olympic champion?
Well, definitely having a very strong belief in yourself. And staying very true and honest to yourself takes sacrifice. Sometimes being, the teacher's pet in a way, that's the best way I can describe it, is doing the things that are going to help you get better, regardless of at what cost that comes. Missing birthday parties for friends because you have a swim meet, or not being able to go to friends and families' weddings or Christmases because you have training. But again, if you have people around you that believe in you and are there to support you and help you and love you no matter what, it makes it easier.
And how many times have you been to the Olympics?
Rio will be my 5th Olympic Games. Probably, I think I've had a longer career than I ever really expected. Some people ask, when you first started, did you think you would be going for your 5th Olympics? No, I never thought that. For me, it's always been about, if I'm still loving what I'm doing, then I'll continue to do it. I think also as you get older and as a female athlete, you start wanting different things. And, my husband and I will want to have kids. And for a male athlete, they don't have to think about it. They can start a family and still continue their career. But as female athletes, you really have to consider kind of everything. And so you want to make sure as you get older and in your career that it's worthwhile. And I'm still loving it and still enjoying it. And so here we go for number 5.
So you described your first experience at the Olympics as a 16-year-old.
Yeah.
What was your second experience like?
So 2004, which was in Athens, Greece, it was the 100-year anniversary of the modern Olympic Games. So that in of itself was just super special. I think Athens, out of all the Olympic Games, is still one of my favorite memories because of the history of those games and the unique small things that they did. So when you won a medal and you got to stand on the podium, they placed an olive wreath on your head. And so little things like that just really made you feel very connected to where the Olympics started and how it started. The lead up to 2004, the training, it's kind of funny because when we look back, my coaches and I, we only really spoke about times. We didn't speak about place. And I don't know why we didn't really acknowledge, like, if we go this time, we could get onto the podium, but we never spoke about podium finishes. We just spoke about times. And again, I think it was a great thing because it took any sort of really big pressure away. We got to Athens and it was a great experience. I won my first medal in the 100-meter backstroke, and it was a silver medal. And Zimbabwe's first medal since 1980, so that was really exciting. And then went on to win a bronze medal, and then my last event, the 200 backstroke, got to win the gold medal. And to win a gold medal, that was kind of your dream from when you were 9, and then for it to happen, it was very surreal. Unfortunately, my parents weren't able to be there, so that was sad, but they were watching from home and super excited. I still remember just you're kind of like, is this really happening? Like, should I pinch myself? Like, and everyone around you and that's there, and the coaches and friends are all super excited. And you're just kind of like, yeah, you wanting to be in the moment, but at the same time, you're like, is this really happening? Like, really? I don't think it really sunk in until I got back to Zimbabwe, and we went back to Zimbabwe for 3 days. Mm-hmm. I'd spoken to my mom on the phone before we left Athens, and she was saying to me, just be prepared because everyone at home is really excited. There were 4,000 or 5,000 people that had come to the airport to greet me and welcome me home. And It was just super emotional. They gave me a microphone to address the crowd, and I don't even think I made it through. I was just crying. I was like, I'm so happy, and thank you so much. I just didn't really know what to expect. Looking back, obviously so emotional, and in the moment, it's just like, is this really happening? But then having time to look back and see how powerful sport can be of bringing people together from all backgrounds, from all walks of life. It didn't matter. Everything was just equal at that point. Everyone was equal. Everyone was there to celebrate. And so that was really cool. And at the same time, so powerful to see what a sport and something that you do every day and that you love can be so positive. And so that, I think, was the best thing that came out of Athens in 2004.
So you talked about the public's response to your victory and your gold medal. Tell me about, well, not just your gold medal, your medals, all three of them. Tell me about the first conversation you had with your parents or your family after you. So
I spoke with them on the phone after I'd won my medals, and I think we were all a little bit in shock. I remember my mom crying, which then made me cry. So then I had to speak to my dad, because he's like, you're just wasting time. You're wasting money. Get off the phone. And they were just so proud. And, my dad is very kind of pragmatic. So he's like, okay, so your next race, 200 IM, so just stay focused. Don't let this, get too big. And again, that's something that I've been very blessed with. Not just my parents, but my closest friends have always kept me very grounded. And, they'll make jokes like, okay, we know you got some medals or something, whatever. You're still like the quirky Kirsty that we know and love.
So you win 3 medals in 2004. Mm-hmm. Tell me about the next Olympics.
The difference from 2004 to 2008 was now we knew and we had higher expectations. And that obviously came with a lot more pressure. I would say the most pressure came from myself, putting it on myself. These are my expectations. This is what I want. My goals for 2008 was to try and win 4 gold medals. It had never been done by a female athlete in swimming. And so it was challenging and something that I was excited about. And my first 3 events, I was out-touched by hundreds, and so got 3 silvers. And at that point, thought I was a failure and just not extremely happy. And that's one thing. Someone asked me a little while ago, like, is there something you would change or tell your younger self? And I was like, well, yes. I would actually tell my younger self to live a little bit more in the moment and be grateful for that moment. You become so goal-oriented, and that if you don't get this, then you don't achieve or you fail. That's wrong. And when you're sitting there talking to people and not athletes, and you say, well, I saw myself as a failure, and they're like, but you won a silver medal at the Olympic Games. And you're like, well, yeah, but it wasn't the gold. And so putting that into perspective, and again, that's where kind of Kim stepped in, and she was like, you are being stupid. And we have won 3 Olympic medals, and we still have your best event to come. So get your head right. And we did. We went into the 200-meter backstroke. The biggest thing I remember out of that whole entire race is the way the pool was set up. It was kind of long ways. And at the one end of the pool, which was on it's 450s, and on the second and fourth 50 swimming backstroke this way, I could see the screen, so I could see where everyone was, and I would just lift my head up. And all Kim says she remembers is yelling at me, going, what are you doing? She's looking, what is she doing? And swimming the first 50 and looking up and seeing my time, and I was like, oh, this is going to be painful, because I went out too fast, and I knew what splits I had to be, and I was like, oh, geez, that was a bit stupid. So just keep swimming, and just at the last kind of 15 meters of the 200, I was like, that wall could not have come quick enough, because I was like, I am dying. I can see one of my teammates who was also at Auburn the same time I was, and my main competitor those couple years, I could see she was coming back, and I was like, oh, hell no, I am getting my hand on the wall first. And, I touched the wall, and I didn't want to look at the board, because I was like, if I have got another silver, how am I even going to act? I was like preparing myself, but I kind of looked up and saw that I'd won and broken the world record. And there's a picture that I love because I'm just holding on the block and my hand is back and I'm like, oh, thank God. Like, thank goodness.
What are you thinking when you're on the, I guess not a starting block, like when you're about to push up, like what are you thinking? And what are you thinking when you're swimming? As you said, you're thinking something as you're swimming.
Well, you are thinking, but you're not thinking. Like on the blocks, I normally have some of my best races when I'm just not thinking about anything. I know I've done hard work. I know that what I've done is good enough, and I can just get in the pool and be pretty confident that the outcome's going to be good. And then during the race, it's kind of you're thinking, okay, my legs are feeling tired. No, they're not. No, they're not. No, they're not. Where's the wall? Where's the wall? And sometimes you're thinking things that I probably can't say on camera, but you're like, just get me to the flipping wall. And then other times you're just really not thinking about anything. You're just thinking about, like your stroke rate or the lane. And when you're turning over, you kind of see someone, but you try to just stay. You're like, swim my own race, swim my own race, swim my own race. Kind of trust what you've been doing in practice. So
tell me about the next Olympics. So that was 2008, and then you went to the next Olympics.
And was looking good, was healthy, and was racing good times and racing well. And 4 months before London, dislocated my knee in the weight room. My kneecap was sitting on the outside of my leg, kind of towards the back, and they couldn't get it back in place. I had to go to the hospital, and it was very traumatic. It was very frustrating because all I was thinking at that point is, how bad is this? Am I going to need a surgery? Am I not? Like 4 months before, what is this going to do my Olympic Games? And for me, 2012, before that point, before that injury, was all about, can I go and defend my title of the 200-meter Olympic champion? No one had ever defended a title for 3 years in a row, so it was like, this would be a really cool thing to do, and then the injury. It was very frustrating and challenging, and a couple of the doctors that I saw suggested we need to do surgery. I was like, you're not cutting me open. Because then I didn't know if my swimming career would be over, and I wasn't really willing. So we took a different option of just trying to do rehab and to get it strong and healthy. And some days were fine, and other days would just be the most frustrating and challenging times. I'd have to step out a little sometimes and just cry and then come back in and be like, okay. She's like, oh, you're all right? I'm like, I'm fine. Let's just move on. And but it was a time where, again, you're kind of going through at the moment and you're like, why is this happening to me? And, like, really, this has to happen now, this close. But looking back at it also teaches you just how strong mentally and physically you can be and how resilient the body is. And a really positive thing that came out with it was that my husband suddenly knew how to really cook amazing food. He had never really cooked for me. And I was stuck in bed and he was bringing these amazing food, and I'd be like, did you order this from somewhere? He's like, no, I just cooked it. I was like, what? How did I not know this for 2.5 years? So we joke about that. And then I had just had a really good practice. I'd kind of pushed off the wall for the first time and had just done a little bit of a start, not a full powerful start, but was able to do the motion. And I was super happy. And it was like a Friday afternoon, but I was really tired, and I was like, I'm just feeling really tired. I'm going to go lie down. And usually I'll nap, and it can be anywhere from like an hour to maybe 2 hours. And I slept straight through my alarm for like 3 hours, and Ty had to come wake me. And he's like, you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm just really tired, and my like lower back is hurting. So, and about 1 a.m, I got up and was having really bad cramps and ran a hot bath, and I didn't want to wake Ty up. And then after about an hour, I woke him up. I'm like, you need to take me to the hospital now. Like, something's not right. And lo and behold, the doctor comes in a couple hours later, and she's like, you have pneumonia. And I was like, excuse me? I have what? I haven't been coughing. I hadn't. And she was like, it's really common in elite athletes because they're pushing their bodies so high, and in triathletes and swimmers especially, because of the surroundings that you guys are in. And Yes, she was like, my whole right bottom part of my lung was just full of blood. She's like, you have pneumonia. And so what I had to do for that is bed rest for 10 days. I was like, are you kidding me? And this was 2 months before London. So it was just this constant like mind game of like, are you like really, I know what everyone else is doing and I'm lying here watching TV, let's put another movie on. And I managed to come 6th in the 200 backstroke and 6th in the 200 IM, just knowing that you kind of have to be your own cheerleader and what is success to you, not necessarily what is success to other people. Because what you would have gone through in your journey could mean you're just as successful as that person getting that gold medal, but just in different terms.
And coming out of London, did you know that you wanted to go for one more Olympics, or what was your thought process coming out of that?
So, yeah, the decision to go after Rio took a little bit more time to really think about. Ultimately, I knew that I probably didn't want to end my career on a meet that I had gone in not fully healthy or fully prepared in a way, physically, mentally. I would say maybe like 6 to 8 months later, kind of decided I want to try and go for Rio again. And Rio, and knowing that Rio would probably be my last Olympics, like that decision was kind of one and the same. Like, I'll go for it, but this is going to be the last one.
And what do you want the legacy to be? What do you want for, young girls and boys who are looking at you? What do you want the legacy to be from your swimming career?
I want people to kind of look at my swimming career and what I've achieved and realize that the lessons and the things that I've gone through and how I've gotten to where I've gotten has not been just because I've loved what I've done, but because I've had great support from families and friends, and because I've always had self-belief in myself, and I've never given up. And it hasn't been easy, but a lot of my success has been because people have believed in me, and the teams that have come up and supported me, I've been really lucky to have had them and to have found them.
Other than sport, other than swimming, you've got some charitable causes, some foundations that you work with. Tell me about some of those and why and what they mean to you.
I started off by getting involved with the Cancer Association back in Zimbabwe, and my mom's a breast cancer survivor. Both my grandmothers passed away with cancer. So that has a strong meaning to me in promoting, a healthier lifestyle, a way of living, or just support to cancer survivors is always something that's been close to me. And then started working with a trust called the Tiki Highwood Trust. They are working for kind of what we like to call the underdogs, like the smaller animals that not a lot of people know about, like the pangolin and the bat-eared foxes, because we loved that story of the underdogs. And it was something that I can relate to. I was the underdog that came up and was able to succeed, and so loved that story. And then we've started working and we've started our own foundation, the Kirsty Coventry Academy, where the focus is to try and teach children about water safety and being able to save themselves and life skills when it comes to swimming. After London, we did a tour around Zimbabwe where we visited 10 provinces and 12 schools, and I think we spoke to about a total of 22,000 kids, and it was awesome. Our slogan was inspiring our youth to become their own heroes. Like, let's not sit around and wait for something to happen. Let's get out there and do it ourselves, because we're all quite capable of doing it. And I think we actually walked away being way more inspired than these kids were, and it was truly something that made me feel even more proud to be Zimbabwean and even more passionate about giving back and hopefully giving back through sport, because you saw just how much love and enthusiasm these little kids had, and in areas where they were having to walk to school 5 kilometers with nothing in their tummies, but they understood and realized how powerful education was and how powerful a community was and how powerful a school was, or the sport that they were going to get to play at school, what it could do for their lives.
So you talked about being inspired by the children that you came across in your tour. What other things inspire you? Or who are some of the people that you feel have been the most inspirational in your life?
For me, I think my parents, and then later on in life, my coaches, the coaches that I've had. I think that's one thing that unfortunately we lack a little bit back home and growing up. There's like a lot of people ask me, well, who were your role models in sports? And I can't really answer that because there wasn't anyone that I could really look up to that I was hearing on a daily basis about. And we haven't done a very good job of telling our stories back home, and especially female stories, whether it be in sport or business or in the arts. So I had to look to the people that were closest to me and that have been the most supportive of me, and that was my parents for me.
What brings you the most joy?
I think just being happy, being around friends, family, around our 2 dogs, my husband,
Gotta throw him in there.
my niece and nephew, and just finding kind of joy in the little things in life. Being happy with the different opportunities and I've been so lucky in my career. I've gotten to travel around the world and get to meet all these different people and get to explore different cultures and backgrounds, and those things just we've never taken for granted, and it's something that's really, really special and unique, and something that has happened because of sport, which not a lot of people think. They're like, oh, you're good at sport, okay, well, how good are you at education? You're going to be a lawyer? And it's like, well, no, I want to be a professional athlete. And they're like, what? And so to say, to talk to different people and be like, well, actually, my sport took me around the world. They're kind of like, what? And I'm like, yeah, like you can actually do that. You can make it a living and become a professional and support yourself and your family.
And what's the best advice you've ever been given?
I've been given a lot of advice. I think some of the best advice that I've been given, I think 2 that always kind of stick in my mind is from my coach, who said, you can only control what's in your control. So don't kind of waste time worrying about things outside of your control. So obviously that was more based off on swimming. Then the other piece of advice, which Ty tells me all the time, is you can get everybody's opinions, but you don't have to listen or do what everyone has to say. So listen and take on what everyone has to say, but then make it your own and decide for yourself. And I think those are 2 things that have kind of stuck with me over the last couple of years.
So you talked about Ty and the advice that he's given you. He's your manager?
Yeah. Husband, manager.
What do you love most about him?
Oh my gosh. Don't look, Sandra, don't look. Right now he's standing in the back taking his shirt off. What I love most about him, he can kind of calm me down, and there's only really 2 people that can kind of do this. It's him and my dad. Is he can calm me down and he can kind of talk over certain things with me, and it makes sense. And he's very good at taking, I can get very emotional and caught up in things, and he's very good at helping me realize if you take out that emotional side, this is actually the problem that we're looking at or we're trying to solve. And then he just makes me laugh, like standing in the kitchen with no shirt on.
What's your biggest regret?
I don't really think I have any regrets, because you go through different things in life, ups and downs, and you make mistakes, and it gets you to where you are today. And so I don't think there's really anything that I would change. I really believe that the things we've gone through in our past kind of help us become stronger characters, and I think that's part of just growing up. You become better enabled to be stronger and realize what you want, and kind of a little bit more focused on the important things in life, like being healthy and being around family. And so, yeah.
And what do you think is the biggest misconception about you? Or what might people be surprised to know about you?
Like, the first thing that comes to my mind is that the biggest misconception, and especially back home, is people think that I've made money like soccer players. And so that's really not true. Sirs, when we do this because we love the sport, not because we necessarily get paid very well. But I think aside from that, I think the biggest misconception is that, people will write or say things without really knowing the facts, and they don't realize how hurtful that can be or how destructive that can be. And being able to now, at this point in my career, transition from being just that swimmer, that's the challenge of how do I make people realize that I'm not just an athlete, that I do actually, I have some value in other areas.
So at the beginning, you told us about telling your dad, I think it was your dad,
yeah,
that I'm going to be an Olympic athlete.
Yeah.
What do you think your mom and dad would say to you sitting right there today as the 7-time Olympic medalist that you are?
Oh, you're getting me all emotional. I think that they would just say that they're super proud. My mom would probably just cry. She's the crier. And my dad is pretty quiet when it comes to that.
Kirsty, our project is called Ndini, which is a Shona word for I am. So finish that sentence for me. I am.
I am a strong Zimbabwean woman, an Olympian, and a humanitarian.
That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you. We wish you the very best of luck for Rio and beyond.
Thank you.
Thanks again for doing this.
Aw, thanks.